Action.
Action. Hi, Simon.
Hi, Deanna.
Welcome back.
Well, thanks for having me. I thought after the first one, you'd probably not invite me back.
I loved it. I love the analysis of your own psychology. I think it's brilliant. I appreciate the thought you've put into all you've been through. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
I just want to I just want to present things as honest as I can. Um, I don't want to embellish. It's so easy for us men to try to embellish what we've done and make it sound like we're something we're not, or that we want to be something that we want to be. And I'm not trying to do that. I'm just trying to give an accurate portrayal of what I remember my life to be.
Well, I think um, you're exhibiting really good dad behavior here too. I can tell you raised your kids right by looking back at your own behavior and your own circumstances and being honest with them. Uh, I'm proud of you. And before
So,
we started, I wanted to say that when I was like 16 and things were so bad in our environment, I mean, I had a wonderful home life, but I think just the fact that we went to school right off Central Avenue was a big part of the problem for us young people. But you were the one of the ones that encouraged me to leave. You said, go, move away. This is not a good place to be. And when you joined the army, a lot of us all started planning our exit. And I think it's a reason that a good many of us survived.
yeah, because so many of us did not.
No, uh, no, but you were a wise man. Uh, I've always just been really, I enjoy our conversations as far back as I can remember. I think you're a wise person. So that's what saved you.
I'll tell you, Deanna, I don't know that I'm a wise person, but what I do know is that, especially as I will get into later, but as I became Catholic and started embracing my Savior and my Lord, I started realizing how much he or she or it has protected me throughout my whole life. And a lot of times I didn't realize how much God was watching over me. So, a lot of times I go to work. I'm a handyman now. For those of you who don't know, I own my own company, and handyman's a pain in the ass job. I'm going to
Hard.
tell you. Yeah, because a lot of people think a handyman's just kind of like a janitor, kind of like a catch-all. You know what? A plumber does plumbing every day, and so you get to hone and figure out your art, right? You're a plumber, so you over time you learn all the details and the tricks. Well, a handyman, I have to learn electricity, framing, plumbing, um, painting, drywall. I have to learn a lot of skills,
We also
you
have to
know.
learn business skills and people skills.
Well, that's a
Uh,
business owner, right? Yeah.
yeah, so
Being a
there's
business
that
owner,
too.
accounting,
Oh gosh.
taxes,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, payroll.
None of those things are easy. And I would imagine it's difficult when you only have uh, one or two toes in each one.
Yeah, it becomes so. What I was getting at, I
Okay.
kind of went on a tangent. What I
Okay.
was getting at is that a lot of times I don't tell my clients this, but a lot of times I wake up in the morning and I don't know how I'm going to achieve the results that I need to achieve for the day. And so I can't sleep at night. Sometimes I'm like laying up in bed thinking, okay, I get there. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do A, B, C, D. We're going to try D. If it doesn't work, well, if it doesn't work, well, then I'll try this. And so I have these contingency plans in my head. And I get to the job site, Deanna. I get to the job site, and I swear that all of a sudden, God guides me. And, before I go to work every day, the first thing I pray is that God, please just let me do good work for my clients. Just let me do a good job for my customer. I don't, I don't care if I don't make money. I mean, I want to make money, but if I don't make money, there's a saying I love that's a boat company, and they say, we make great boats at a profit if we can, at a loss if we must, but always great boats. And so if I get on site and I find out that I quoted the customer wrong because I didn't think of something, well, I eat it, but I get the job done. And I pray to God when I go to work. I say, God, please just let me do a good job for Mrs. Saavedra, because Mrs. Saavedra contracted me. She contracted me because um, people contract handyman because they can't afford a real plumber, or they can't afford a real electrician, or they can't afford a window company. They can't afford that. And so they contract a handyman in the hopes that they find someone who will do a good job for a good price. And a lot of times they get scammed. Handymen are notorious for doing shitty work. Sorry, I did it
It's
again.
okay. It's
You did a
okay.
lot of editing on the last one.
It's hard for both of us not to swear. I'm not sure how
Yeah.
much we'll get away with, but it is what it is.
So anyway, the whole point is that God guides me every day. That's one of the things I want to. This next portion will lead into. But yeah, I'm just blessed, Deanna. I'm a blessed man. I've been blessed. I didn't know it, but I've been blessed my whole life.
I see that in you.
I've
Uh,
just been blessed.
th-
So I can't take credit for anything, like you say that you just I don't take credit. It's God. God has I'm God's tool. He uses me to get what he wants done. And by the grace of God, I usually do a good job. I I usually do a good job, but I can't take credit for it. It's God's work.
well, if you want to give God credit, I will let you. But I still think you're wise and hardworking and have a great heart.
Thank you.
Uh, thanks for
Okay,
talking with me.
so
Okay.
where do we left off at Saddam Hussein invading Iraq?
Yeah. Invading Kuwait,
I'm sorry.
1991.
Yeah, I
1991.
invaded Iraq. Yeah. Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait.
Uh,
Uh, I think that was 1991, right? It
yeah.
was August of 1991.
Yeah.
Um, George Bush sent the 82nd Airborne to draw a line in the sand. So the 82nd Airborne were the first boots in Saudi Arabia's, the first Western military in Saudi Arabia's history. They
Yes.
had, yeah, they had never before allowed Western civilization.
Uh, and just to interject here, but I lived in Saudi Arabia for almost 5 years, and it's very, I don't want to say controversial, because I wasn't exposed to the controversy of it, but the historical impacts of that can be felt and are talked about. It was a big deal for them. It was a big deal for everyone, but I saw it from a different side later, and it really was the first time Western troops were allowed on
Saudi
sacred,
Arabian soil.
yeah,
Yeah.
which is very sacred to them.
And so what they did was, um, well, let me. there's one thing I gotta segue into something because there's
Okay.
something that I just there's something that I love that I have to go back. So
Okay.
um I was air defense artillery. As I presented earlier, air defense artillery was not the first. So the first guys that landed in Saudi Arabia were airborne infantry, the infantry, the 505, the 501, and the 504 parachute infantry regiments. They were there like in 24 hours on the ground. And that's the 82nd Airborne's calling.
What
That
they
in
do.
20 anywhere around the world in 24 hours.
Wow.
And George Bush sent the 82nd Airborne specifically because of their history. He thought that it may cause Saddam Hussein pause to invade Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia was very worried that Saddam Hussein was going to invade them next.
Yes, I do. I remember it well.
So
Because you
he
were
sent
there,
the
I followed the news a lot. I followed the news a lot because you were there. I was not expecting when when you went off to join the army. I wasn't expecting for you to actually have to go to war. It was a big deal. It was a really big deal. Um,
yeah, yeah. It was an adventure.
yeah.
So so um I remember the 82nd Airborne is comprised of divisions. It's comprised of regiments, battalions. And so what they do is they have a 3 cycle phase, or they did when I was there. I don't know what they're doing now. But when I was there, it was 4 months of training, and then 4 months of standby, and then 4 months of um, readiness. And so for 4 months, your unit can't go you're locked down. You're like, if George Bush calls, you are the unit going. And then there's 4 months of, if George Bush calls, these other units are going first, you are next.
That's the difference between standby and readiness.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's 4 months of just rigorous training where you're preparing, you're reiterating your training. And the military, like everything else, changes constantly. The military battle plans, military equipment, the things that you're using, the things change. The communication, commo, commo changes constantly. So those 4 months you're in training. So you have training, standby, and readiness. At least when I was there, right? It may be different now. But so when Saddam Hussein, we were in standby. And so they sent out the other units, and then the rest of us were getting ready to go. We knew we were going to go. We started prepping all of our vehicles and cannons, and we started packing it up and getting it in trucks so that we could load it on boats, and the ships were going to take it to Saudi. They were going to take it somewhere, and then they were going to train it or track it to King Fahd military facility, which was in Saudi Arabia. So one thing that I like, I'll never forget, while we were in this preparation, one of the generals called us into an auditorium, and he called us all in, and he said, okay, so, well, by now you all know you're going to war. And I'm sure you're worried. You're scared. And don't lie about it. Don't try to be tough. I know you're all scared. You're going to war. At the time, Iraq had gassed. Like 10 years earlier, Iraq had been in a long war with Iran, and Saddam Hussein had gassed his own people.
His own people.
Yeah, his own people. He get what Saddam Hussein did was his one of his towns was getting overrun by Iranians,
Oh,
and rather than lose the town, he
he,
just sarin gassed the entire population, killing his own people.
wow.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so we were 98% sure he was going to gas us. We were sure he was going to gas us. Anyway, this general called us into an auditorium and he said, I know you all are scared. And Iraq had the fourth largest army in the world at that point, the fourth largest army in the world. And so, all this was coming out and the whole world was scared. And us soldiers that were getting ready to go, we were scared. So this general puts up this presentation and he says, I just want you guys to realize something. He did a long speech, but basically the gist of it was he put up this um it was like it was in an auditorium, so it was like a movie screen. It was a huge screen. And he said, in 10 years of war with the North Vietnamese, we lost, I'm going to say, I may have these numbers wrong, but I'm paraphrasing. He said, in 10 years of war with North Vietnam, we lost 57,829. Again, this number I'm just making up, but
Okay.
soldiers, we lost 57,829 soldiers to the North Vietnamese in 10 years of war. That's 5,800 a month, a year.
Wow.
Uh, that's 10 years of war with Vietnam. He said, then he pulled up another sheet. He said, last year in 1990, we lost 72,360 on the highways to traffic accidents. He said, so if you look at it, you're actually going to be safer in Iraq than you are here.
Wow. Wow. Welcome to the future.
So, well, there's whatever point million teens on the freeway. There's only 100,000 or so in a combat zone. So the numbers, he's definitely presenting, but
Yeah.
but it worked. And again, like I told you before, the army has a way of making you
Yeah.
feel like, oh
There's
yeah, okay, you're right.
oh,
I'm going to be safer fighting Saddam Hussein than I am here.
as a parent of young men who is like really freaked out by them driving, I'm going to go around now telling them they would have had better chances with Saddam Hussein than they would driving on the freeways.
What?
I don't think that's nice, but whatever I can do, because
I
as a
didn't mean to
mom, I'm
scare
like,
you,
I knew it, I knew it. But
but
I,
and you and I have both had friends died on the freeway. So
yes, we did.
um, so anyway, I wanted to. That's one of my favorite stories. So I had to.
Sure, it
I,
absolutely proves your point that the army has a way of motivating you guys to do what it wants you to do.
yeah,
Cowboy up, John Wayne.
cowboy, suck it up and drive on.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay, so that was before, and then I got deployed, and they sent us on commercial jets. I don't know if you knew this, but we I went to Saudi Arabia on a uh, what are the double decker planes? The ones that
Oh,
have.
yeah, the Airbuses. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I can't remember what they're called. I used to know it, but I haven't told this story for so long. I forgot. But it's the plane that
The
has an
big
upstairs and
ones.
down.
Yeah,
Yeah, it has two levels.
yeah.
You can and I went on that plane and I walked around John F. K. Airport in New York with a loaded M16.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
I'll never forget that.
Wow. America at war.
I had a loaded M16 on a plane and in an airport.
Wow. So they just put everybody on a commercial plane, but you're all military, so you were in
Yep.
full combat gear with loaded weapons. Well,
Yes.
full uniform or however you guys describe it, but
Yeah, we
with
weren't full
loaded weapons.
combat. Our combat gear was
Yeah.
but we
Yeah.
were in full uniform with our M16, and we weren't supposed to load the magazine. The magazines, we had ammunition in our magazines. We weren't supposed to load them, but because we were all fucking cheese dicks,
I'm I'm not
that
worried about the swearing. I'm worried about you guys. You young
that's
men
a
just don't ever follow directions, do you?
that's an edit, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
because we were all um
The army
young.
wouldn't. Yeah, the army wasn't going to recruit you because you were all like happy-go-lucky bookworm kids. They were.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, they
We
were
had to be a
looking.
little we
Yeah,
we had to be a little crazy, right?
yeah. I don't
And
doubt
then
it a bit.
and then to jump out of airplanes, you have to be another level of crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Uh,
yeah, so we loaded all our, we it was so fun for us at that point. And then the stewardesses, because we were on a commercial airline. You can imagine 19, 20,
yeah,
21
barely,
year
barely.
with the stewardess freaking out because they knew they were taking us to combat, to war. They were so lovely and flirty and just um just young women trying to be polite and connect with young men that they knew at the time. Okay, looking back, it was all kind of a lot, but at the time when we're going over there, it was the fourth largest army in the world. He had gassed his own people in Iraq, and at the time, it was serious. We didn't know if we were coming home.
Well, in the military, you don't know. Every deployment is serious,
Yeah,
correct? Every that's what you're
you
there
don't know.
for. You know, that's what you're there for. Be prepared.
So we didn't know if we were coming home, and the stewardesses didn't either. And so the trip to Egypt, because our first stop was in Paris. We stopped in Paris, and that flight was it was again invoking what I said in my previous interview about wanting to be something, and then I mean it was like something you would see in the movies. I
Sure,
mean
sure.
everybody, all these beautiful stewardesses catering to all these um I think those planes hold like 300
Oh
passengers.
yeah.
um 300 soldiers with a weapon at their side, and they're catering to us, and it was a surreal moment. It was something I'll never forget, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
I'm sure it
So
had a
we went.
huge impact on your life.
Yeah, it's yeah. I I can't say how huge. I mean, it's one of the biggest moments that I've ever been through.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, I was the only way I can relate to it is the way I think now about death. I was nervously excited, is the way I would describe it. I was very excited. I wanted to test myself. I wanted to know how I was going to act in combat. I wanted to know if I was going to cower and cry and hide and run. I kind of knew because I'd been fighting my whole life. I kind of knew that I wouldn't, but I kind of wanted to know.
You don't know. You just
Yeah.
don't know until you're faced with emergency situation. You don't know how you're going to act. And everyone I've ever faced, I've probably acted different. So you just don't know.
So I was nervously excited. I was excited that I'm finally going to war. I don't know. I think I even talked to you and Damien back in the day.
Oh, absolutely.
I talked to you guys about I'm going to go to war someday. I'm going to join the Marine. I used to all tell you I was going to join the Marines. I'm going to join the Marines, and thank God I didn't join the Marines
But
because if I'd have joined the Marines, I wouldn't have been a paratrooper.
no.
Paratroopers are way better than Marines.
Yeah.
For all you Marines out there.
Yeah. You just had to say it. You can. You can. Thank God that you did uh, join the army, the military, though, because obviously where you had been growing up wasn't working out very well. And
Yeah, I was on a dark path.
really, the history of America, that is a lot of young men. A lot of young men joined the military because they were on dark paths or they didn't have good lives. I wish there was a better avenue in a situation like that, but it worked. It worked for more than one man in the world.
Absolutely. And then,
Yeah.
you know, Pink Floyd's song, Did You Escape a Walk On Part in the War for a Leading Part in a Cage? That's
It like
exactly, yeah.
speaks to you.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it is, right? So, anyway, we're already 30 minutes into this, Deanna. Can you believe it? I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to be an hour again. Watch.
That's
I
okay.
haven't even
Go
got,
for it.
I haven't even
Go for
gotten
it.
past the army, and we could.
It's okay.
So, okay, I'm going to try to
But do
speed
me a
this up.
favor, scoot your camera back a little bit. I don't want to edit this and cut your head off someday. There you go. So just there's a little more space. There you
Is
go.
that better?
Yeah. I'm really a newbie at this uh, video production, so I don't want to like cut your head off.
I'm a
Okay.
newbie at interviews, so that's why
No, because
I
all of
start
our conversations are like this.
I start going off on some tangent.
That's okay.
Okay, so okay, so let me start getting concise and to the point here. So we landed in Riyadh. The heat was like I had never felt in my life. When we got off the plane, I remember it feeling like a heater blowing on my face. It was incredibly hot. And I got there in October. August, September. No, I lied. I got there in September. I got there in September, right after my birthday. Right after my 21st birthday.
Oh, okay.
Um, the heat was intense. They bused us to King Fahd Military. What did he call it? King Fahd Military Kingdom, I think is what it was. King Fahd Military Facility or so. Anyway,
Was it a
some
long? Was it like a long drive all the way across Saudi Arabia on a bus?
yeah, it was
Uh,
like 3 hours from King Fahd, from the
from Riyadh.
airport.
I
from the
just have to
airport.
I just have to point out that when I lived in Saudi Arabia, my kids went to school on the embassy, the consulate grounds, which I think was the King Fayed. Uh, Gosh, I have a lot of Saudis on this channel that are going to be say it right. I think it was King Fayed Air Force facility, and it was in the Eastern Province. It encompassed the consulate and the international school. So I spent some time there myself.
Okay, so you know what? I forget that you spent time in Saudi Arabia. I want to apologize to any Saudi Arabians who may be watching this if I get something. This is from my perspective
Yeah, me
as
too.
a private in the army. I didn't know. I just did what they told me to do. If I get something wrong, I apologize. I respect greatly your culture, and I don't mean to be offensive if in some
No.
way I am.
Uh, and I've never met anyone from Saudi Arabia that I didn't truly, really like and enjoy. So I consider them all friends. And really, you were sent there to defend them. You were under the impression that you were defending them in case,
Yes, in
uh,
case Saddam Hussein tried to take Saudi Arabia,
yeah,
um, which at the time was a serious concern. They were worried that he was going to try. He took Kuwait, and they were really concerned that he was going to try to take the oil fields
yeah,
of Saudi Arabia.
sure.
So anyway, if I get to pronounce King
No,
Fayad and
me too.
King, yeah, forgive
Uh,
me. Please
yes.
forgive me.
And me as well.
I mean no disrespect. Um, so if I understand correctly, these military facilities had been built by the Saudi Arabian government, like with the foresight that they may need to call in help. Because when we got there, they were all brand new, immaculate military complexes, and there was no one there. It was like
Really,
they were, yeah, it was like they were waiting in case some military,
really.
yeah. Um, I'll never forget that. They bust us right out of Riyadh. It was like a 3 or 4 hour bus ride to these military complexes in the middle of nowhere, like as far
Oh,
away
wow.
from society as
Anyway,
possible. Yeah.
really,
They didn't want us interacting with their people. So they had these facilities and they were like brand new, Deanna. They were like brand new, never been used. It's like they had the foresight that, well, if something happens, we can call the Americans in and we can house them over here away from us. Because let's face it, our Western culture is very different from their culture.
no, actually, not at all. That's a whole other topic.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
oh, just the fact that so much of their infrastructure seems to be influenced by the British, and a lot of their culture seems to have been influenced by the Americans.
Oh, okay.
It's pretty obvious when you're there, uh, which is good and bad. It's a really interesting place because you know nothing about it, and then until you get there, and then there's a lot to learn.
Well, we could have a whole nother podcast
Yeah,
about the
yeah,
history of imperialism by the
yeah.
British and the Americans.
Yes. We better save that for later.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway, so we get to this military. I think it was King
King
Fayad
Fayad. King Fayad.
Fayad's
Yes.
military
Fahad.
military complex,
Okay.
and we stayed there. Um, we were there right up until from September to December. And basically, we were training. We were doing MOP 4. MOP 4, for those of you who don't know, is chemical warfare training. You put on this suit that looks like War Pigs. I mean, it looks straight out of War Pigs. The Ozzy Osbourne song War Pigs. You have it's a complete gas suit, and we trained on chemical warfare and how to fight in chemical warfare. And that's what we did from September to December. In December, we started moving closer to the border. I didn't I didn't know then, but I know now we were doing that because they had already Schwarzkopf and Colin Powell and President Bush had already decided that we were going to invade in January. So at that point, we started transitioning from King Fayad's military complex to the border. If I remember correctly, it was a town called Wafwa, Rafwa, that we were close by. But we weren't at the town. We were in the desert digging hole. We were living literally in a hole. I have pictures on my Facebook of me, Merrill, and Sergeant Mangrum in that bunker that we built after a patrol that we had done. And there's pictures on my Facebook of that exact place. And then, so we were there for, I don't know, a few weeks. And then when the invasion began, um, there was no air defense artillery because the coalition forces there was no air force threat from Saddam Hussein whatsoever. There was no threat of air. We had,
No, it was Scud missiles and Patriot missiles. Uh,
yeah.
Patriot missiles
So,
shooting down Scud missiles. Uh,
so what happens when you're an air defender and there's no air threat? They turn you into what's called mechanized infantry. Mechanized infantry is basically infantry forces with a truck. So you can move a little faster than just marching, right?
okay, yeah.
Yeah, mechanized infantry, you have vehicles, but you're infantry. And
Okay,
when there's no air threat, they convert air defenders into mechanized infantry. And I invaded Iraq along with the French Foreign Legion, believe it or not. We entered Iraq with the French Foreign Legion.
really,
Yeah.
really.
Uh, so we invaded Iraq with the French Foreign Legion. We were in column together, and our mission was to stop the retreating Republican Guard. I don't know if you guys remember, the Republican Guard was Saddam Hussein's
Private
Delta
Army.
Force.
Yeah. Oh, it was his elite forces.
Yeah, yeah, it was
Okay.
his elite forces.
Okay.
And so our mission was we were far north. We were way far north from Kuwait. So Rafah is way far north of Kuwait. It's closer to Baghdad.
Really.
Yeah. So our mission was to cut across the desert and cut off the retreating Republican Guard. The Republican Guard, by this time, had raided Kuwait of their riches and all their stuff, plundered Kuwait, and was retreating back to Baghdad with the spoils of war. And our mission and the French Foreign Legion's mission and the 24th Mechanized Infantry mission, there was another unit that was also tasked with us. Um, our mission was to cut off the retreating Republican Guard
Really.
and yeah, and prevent them from getting to Baghdad.
Really.
So suddenly we were racing across the desert.
And
I
just
mean,
big trucks
seriously.
and tanks and uh, just move
Big
a whole.
trucks, tanks, cannons. Yeah.
Wow.
MLRS is multiple launch rocket systems, which is basically, if you can imagine, it's a semi truck that pulls up and then the back of the semi lifts up and rockets start flying out of it.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
MLRS, multiple launch rocket systems. And yeah, so we started racing across the desert, a mad race to intercept the Republican Guard. And we didn't, and so we had, okay. So I have in my military transcript, I was involved in 2 battles on the way to intercept the Republican Guard. And basically, for those of you who want to know about war, um, basically my battles, the 2 that I was involved in, it was not like the John Wayne movie. It was nothing. It was basically these multiple launch rocket systems parking. It was basically us stopping 10 5 miles away from the village, and then these multiple launch rocket systems pulling up in front of us, and these semis lifting up and shooting rockets into the village for about an hour, and then they back off, and then we would go in, and pretty much at that point it was just cleaning up the mess. I mean, we were there was small skirmishes. There was 1 or 2 or 3 people that were still trying to battle, but for the most part everybody was for the most part everyone had been killed by the time we got there.
Wow.
And so we would go into these villages, and we would make sure that that there was no hostiles in front of us. And like I said, there was 2 or 3, or a handful, a dozen maybe, but for the most part the place was cleared. And when I say cleared, I'm talking women and children too.
You just shoot rockets into a village, it's not going to go well for the people in the village.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so it was
That part wasn't like the movies.
it wasn't like the movies.
No.
Unless, I mean, the only movie that I can think of that comes close to it is The Deer Hunter.
Man.
It was horrible.
They prepared you to fight. Did they prepare you for coming upon a blown up village with lots of uh,
Women and
deceased
children?
civil? Yeah, no. They to prepare you for that?
No,
No,
no.
no.
And I'm going to tell you something. The fact that you didn't really fight and come across that makes it all. If I'd have fought, if I'd have had to fight, and by the time I get there, I'm like, I'm, I've been fighting and fighting and fighting.
No.
But when you just coming across that, like it was like that easy, like it was just like
Yeah, because the whole Gulf War kind of had that theme of just obliterating everything.
it it was something. It was something. So, and then okay, so I was part of 2 of those type of battles on the way to trying to stop the Republican Guard from getting to Baghdad. Well, when we got to Highway 8, north of, it's like 30 miles south of Baghdad. I mean, when we got there too late. 18th, the Air Force had decimated the entire convoy. When we
The
got there, when we
the
got there,
Go ahead.
when we got there, it was dogs, hungry, starving dogs feeding on corpses.
Wow. Wow.
It was, it was, by the time we got there, the Air Force had decimated them. It
You're
was a
talking
con.
about Baghdad? Just decimated that area, the whole
No, it was
city.
about, no, it wasn't Baghdad. It was about 40 miles south of Baghdad on a
Okay.
freeway.
Okay.
It was a freeway. It was a they were the Republican Guard was on a freeway trying. It was, imagine I-25 from here to Santa Fe,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
then in Buttigieg's,
Yeah. So it's a
everybody just,
suburb, a Baghdad suburb.
you're just getting. I mean, at some point, the convoy on the freeway just gets attacked by A-10 Thunderbolts. Um, and Deanna, they were decimated. I mean, it. The Air Force destroyed. The Air Force won Iraq.
Really? Well, that's what the blowing up of the bridges, all the things they showed us on television.
There was there was thousands, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of vehicles blown up, destroyed, and in each one of those vehicles there was three or four people. And yeah, and some of them, some of the transport vehicles had 20 soldiers in the back, and we rode up on that. And well, I remember finding bodies with their pants around their ankles. Seriously, I mean their their whole private parts exposed. And we were like, why would they? And the only thing I can think of is that they were on fire, and they thought if they took their clothes off, they could get.
Wow.
Um, that's the only thing I can think of. That's why they were trying to disrobe, because yeah. And so, uh, well, shit. Here we are, 50 minutes in. Okay, so that was the war. That was the war. And then I come home, and uh,
Now, now you have to sleep at night with those visions in your head.
well, I didn't have a problem sleeping at night with those visions in my head. I didn't mind that, to be honest with you. At the time, I didn't mind it. A little while later, I had a problem with it, but we'll get there. Um, this is so stupid. It's so stupid. I had a problem with the fact that I felt like I didn't feel like I had done enough in the war. So, I'm like, I never had a hand to hand combat experience, eye to eye. And so, I get home and I'm like, I can't even do war right.
Oh,
I
so sweet. That's like, wow, that's a lot to put on yourself. Uh,
Yeah, I felt like a failure. I came home, I survived it. I didn't ever have a real John Wayne moment, you know? I was like, fuck, I can't even do this right. Um, and so I got really depressed. I got really, really depressed. I started drinking a lot more. And then one night, I was riding my motorcycle. I had a motorcycle. I was riding my motorcycle drunk all the time. Uh, at work, I was working. I was working hard. But my first sergeant one time told me, Garcia, he liked to chew tobacco.
Mm-hmm.
He had a big old chaw of tobacco. And he said, Garcia, I love you, son. And back in the day, we would just take you out back and kick your ass. But that ain't the army no more, son. You work hard. You work hard, and I respect that. But goddamn it, Simon, you play hard too.
Oh, they know.
So I was getting in fights. I was drinking all the time. I was getting in a lot of trouble. One night, one night I got in a fight. I got real drunk. I got my ass kicked. This guy beat my ass. I came back to the barracks. At Fort Bragg at the time, our barracks, the latrines, I was on the third floor. The latrines faced the parking lot. So the windows to the latrines face the parking lot. So we're talking, I don't know, 1 o'clock in the morning, something like that. We all come back. The guys that I had been with, I had gotten in a fight. I got my ass kicked, embarrassed myself or whatever I had done. I don't even remember. But I felt really shitty. And I went up into the barracks and I went up into the latrine and I took my belt off and I wrapped it around the top of and I hung myself. And by the grace of God, everybody in the parking lot, the lights were, it was dark, the lights of the latrine were shining the shadows onto and Shay, one of my buddies, Shay ran up and cut me down.
Thank you, Shay.
And that ended my military career because you can't have a suicide paratrooper.
No.
And
Thanks for telling us that, Simon. Those are the kinds of things you gotta get out of your head. Oh, thanks for sharing that.
by the grace of God, I had worked so hard. I got a medal for my duty in Iraq, AAM, an Army Achievement Medal. By the grace of God, I had worked so hard, and all the cadre, all my military, all my supervisors and NCOs, I have letters to this day of them saying, we'll fight with Simon any day. Please just put him in a rehab. Please keep him in the army. Please this, please that. So I got an honorable discharge. I didn't get a medical. I got an honorable. But the truth of the matter is, I got discharged because I attempted suicide, which I'm not proud of. But it is what it is. So I come home, and one thing I didn't go in, I didn't know how many people are comfortable with me dropping names. So I didn't go into a lot of details about people, but in high school I had really good friends, and one of my good friends, one of my best friends in the world. I know you know who I'm talking about, but I don't want to say his name because him and his wife are kind of private, and I don't know if I should name drop, but he was one of my best friends in the world. And when I got out of the army, I called him and I told him what happened. And I think I was in tears crying because I loved the army. I loved being a paratrooper. I had that stupid night and now it was all over. And I called him and he said, "Hey, Simon, come live with us. You live with me and my wife." you come here. And so when I had to spend like 2 weeks in a mental facility. The army's like that.
Don't you think you should have spent longer in a mental facility? Like there's sorry.
I kind of think I should have spent my whole life in a mental.
Leave it to me. Just I have issues with sending uh service people just home, just discharge you from the military. Think of the things that you saw that really could have used some counseling or some therapy. It wasn't just you drinking and getting into a fight that got you discharged from the army. It was, I just think there should be more resources for people when they're discharged from the army. I'm not saying that very articulately. But
You
darn
want
it,
to know
two
the
weeks,
truth?
2 weeks is not very much help from an institution that just taught you how to fight and kill. And they should have taught you how to decompress too.
You know what, Deanna? And I mean this wholeheartedly. Uh, Thousands of soldiers saw the same thing I did, and they just dealt with it. And I was the weak one who tried to kill myself. So uh, I, I don't agree with that. I think I truly believe that the army did their best for me.
I would, I would dare to ask how many military veterans have committed suicide, though. How many were probably discharged for even that? I'm sure you're not the only guy that ever did that while still in the army, given the statistics of how many do that later. I'm not articulating very well because that's a pretty big
I know what you're
topic, and
saying, but you know what? I don't hold the army responsible for my shortcomings.
well, I don't see it as a shortcoming. But we can move on. I'll study my psychology, and we'll get back to this because this is
Okay.
in no way you're failing as a human, either one of these. But I'm not actually a therapist, so I'll get back to you on that subject because I'm not buying that.
All right. Well, yeah.
But you came home riding your motorcycle
Yeah.
drunk,
Yeah.
getting in fights.
And then so um my best friend invited me to his home, and I moved in with him and his wife for a time period. I don't think it was more than a month. It may have been a month. I'm not the type of person to just sit idle. Um, I got a job as soon as I could working for a plastic manufacturing company. And while I was living with, kind of keep wanting to say their name, but I
These
just don't know.
wonderful people who have saved many people, who have taken in people so many times when they really needed it.
And you know who they are, and
I do.
everybody who knows me knows who they are. So
Well, and anybody that's watching this video that doesn't know
probably,
them will just knows that there are those friends out there. There
yeah.
are always those people in the world, and to have someone like that in your life is what can make all the difference.
And I just don't want to name drop because
Nope.
they're
Yep.
kind of private people.
Well, mm-hmm.
So but we all know who I'm talking about, right? My best friend and his wife. And of course, the way life works, my best friend's wife's best friend was hanging around all the time. And being that I was living at their apartment, I was hanging around all the time too. And before you know it, we had a son. Um, beautiful baby boy, and um, do I want to go into this or not? Yeah. And the
We could
truth
save
is,
that for another episode if you want. I
okay,
want to
that could be a
talk.
whole.
Yeah, I would like to talk about how that woman and that son gave you a lot to live for. It was one of the grounding things that you'd always needed in your life. Uh,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
So suddenly I'm going to be a dad,
yeah.
and
You
suddenly I have
stepped up.
I
You
stepped up.
stepped up. Been a
I did
great
step up.
dad. Hell yeah.
I just saw Joey this last weekend.
Really,
He helped me replace a water heater.
really. He's a very
So okay,
successful young man these days, isn't he?
he is.
Yeah. You raised
Uh,
good kids. You're a good dad, Simon. It's one of the things you always needed was somewhere to channel that good heart of yours.
Thank you. I
Thank you.
don't
You
quite
raised good kids.
I don't know quite how to respond to that, but thank you.
Oh,
I haven't been that great a dad, but I tried. Anyway, um, so we have a son, and then a couple years later, I have a daughter, Jasmine, who's now in a nursing program. She's going to be a nurse like my mom. And then, so me and Mary married for, so I love my children, but Mary and I married for, Mary was, damn it, I name dropped. I didn't mean to do that.
yeah, but
Anyway,
isn't Mary is like some incredibly successful, awesome scientist at this point. You
and
should be dropping her name
yes,
like, yeah, I was
yes,
married to her. But
she's a
she was
badass.
yeah, but she was a child at the time. She's younger than me, and I'm younger than you, and you were both
You're
very
right.
young.
She's a
Yeah,
badass right
yeah,
now. She's
yeah,
making six figures.
yeah. You go, girl.
She's a
Yeah,
badass.
yeah,
So, okay, thank you for.
yep.
uh,
Uh, she was a
She is.
she was just
She,
so young at the time. You were so young at the time, but she was younger than all of us, and uh, you
yeah.
know, uh,
So anyway, she was trying to escape her family, like
okay,
all young people do,
yeah,
and I was trying to escape me,
yeah,
maybe my mind.
yeah,
I don't know what I was trying to do, but I thought having a family was going to be the avenue. And maybe it would have been, but Mary and I were not really compatible.
okay, that's okay.
And yeah, it is okay. It's fine. Part of it was I was abusive to her. I will freely admit that. I was if it, when I got frustrated about things, I was violent.
Mm,
And Mary uh, was the type of person that she just liked to push. She liked to push every button that she could, and at the time I didn't know how to handle that, and so God bless her soul, she ended up leaving me, and was probably the best thing that happened to both of us. Um, in that time frame, my grandfather that I had talked about in the previous episode, my grandfather passed away. He invited me and Joey and Jasmine to go watch the Kentucky Derby in 2000. So the Kentucky Derby's in May, right? In
yes.
May of 2000, my grandfather invited us to go down and visit him. Mary was off. We were already, Mary was off with her friend. They were having a weekend away. I was watching the kids by myself. I took the kids down to my grandparents' house, and we were watching the Kentucky Derby. And my grandfather got up and he started getting peanut butter and bread and a glass of milk. And he says, "Oh, I love peanut butter, Simon. I love peanut butter." And I said, "Oh, good, Grandpa. Enjoy your peanut butter." And he ate 2 slices of peanut butter with a glass of milk. And then he sat down in his little recliner. And my mom came over. And we were watching the Kentucky Derby, and my grandfather fell asleep. And my mom and my grandmother started talking about Grandpa. And my mom, who was a registered nurse, looked over and she said, "Wow, Dad's colors looks terrible." And then she got up and she went and she said, "Oh my God, oh my God." And I don't know why my mom didn't do it, but she said, "Simon, give him CPR." And so I pulled him off the chair and I started giving him CPR, and I could taste the peanut butter in his mouth.
Hmm.
And yeah, he died. That was the last time I ever saw my grandpa.
No kidding.
Yeah. And I'm going to tell you, up until like 5 months ago,
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't eat peanut butter.
Really?
Just recent, just recently I've been able to.
Man,
Just recently I've been able to eat peanut butter again, but
this man
I
was
couldn't.
hugely important to you. He was a captain in the Air Force. He was your idol.
Yeah,
Uh,
he was. Yeah,
but he
he
waited
was.
until you were there. He waited until you and your mom and the kids were there.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for being there for him.
yeah. So yeah, he passed. I had to bring that up because that's a big part of my life.
Yeah.
So and then I'm trying to get through this. We're already another
No,
hour
you
into.
just keep going unless it doesn't upload and we'll do it all again tomorrow, you poor man.
So yeah, so Grandpa died. Me and Mary are divorcing. We're in the middle of the divorce when Grandpa died. Um, and I'm working at this plastic company, and I meet Laura, and so Laura, her name is
Loud.
Laura. Laura. Laura está trabajando she's working in these big machines that um they're injection molding machines. They inject plastic into molds and they make different things. She works there, and I'm one of the managers at Jewel Art by this time. Um, and and one day, one of Laura's friends, Fatima, Laura doesn't speak any English.
Still.
She does, but she doesn't
Okay.
like. She's embarrassed,
Okay. It's okay.
so
I'm
she does.
embarrassed of my Spanish.
She doesn't. That's the difference between me and her. I speak horrible Spanish, and I'm not embarrassed at all. Then sometimes people will say, they'll correct me, and I'll say, "But you understood what I meant, right?"
Yes, yeah.
So
Spoken
anyway,
like it.
my mom one time asked me because I could speak Spanish before I could understand it.
Yes. See,
Yeah, a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people understand it before they can speak it.
really?
Yeah, because they're embarrassed about their speech, so
Okay.
they don't speak it, but they
Okay.
understand it.
Okay.
I was the opposite. I could speak it before I could understand the way other people. First of all, I have a hearing problem. My ear is blown from a cannon, a Gatling cannon shooting all the time. So first of all, I have a kind of a hearing issue. So people's dialects and their pronunciations, I have, even in English, sometimes I can't. So anyway, and my mom one time asked me, she said, "How is it that you can speak Spanish, but you don't understand it?" And I said, "Well, that's easy. What I'm saying is important."
There you go. That sounds exactly like something you would say.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Anyway, I lost my train. Anyway, okay, so Fatima, Laura's friend, who could speak English, and she, at the time, I didn't speak Spanish. I didn't. I didn't speak Spanish. Laura and I would smile, and to be honest, in jewel art there was a lot of women working because women are better off. Do women are better at, not better off. Women are better at, and I don't mean this. I mean this with total respect. I learned at jewel art, women are better at doing monotonous, tedious jobs than men are. We would hire men and fire them right and left. A woman, for some reason, can do them. And what we're talking is thousands of parts of manufacturing the same plastic trinket day in, day out. Women were just
More patient,
better at it.
more patient, more.
More patient, more accepting of the tedious work, or I don't know why. I'm just telling you that men would start, honestly, men would start graffitiing on shit, and they would start like, they wouldn't pay attention to the work. And they would start going to the bathroom all the time and leaving the machine to just drop parts on the floor. And men are just too ADHD or something. Men just weren't good. I'm sorry. I'm just
No, no,
telling
no.
you, men
Whole
were
other
not good.
episode.
Yeah, men were not good at the work. So jewel art was full of women. We had women working there, a lot of women. And I was going through a divorce with Mary, and I flirted with all of them. All, but Laura, she was different. She, her eyes, her smile, her. Anyway, I was just being me, a typical me. Just, and one day, Fatima, she pulled me aside and she said, "Laura told me she had a dream that she was kissing you." Deanna, I'm going to tell you this story. This story is so innocent and silly. I mean, we're not talking sex. We're not talking, we're just, she had a dream she was kissing me.
It's really
And
sweet.
me being the flippant, arrogant paratrooper that I am, I responded to Fatima, "Well, you go back and you tell Laura I can make all her dreams come true."
Oh, you're so funny, Mr. Charming.
Where did that come from, right? Like this
I was
ass.
there. It was there.
And so she went back and told Laura that, and Laura was completely embarrassed. She did,
Oh,
yeah, she turned red. She was mad at Fatima. She said, "Why did you tell him? What?" But being that I was a manager, I had a little leeway. After that, every morning, I started taking Laura a coffee to her station. "You want a coffee?" And she was like, "Yeah, I want a coffee." And
sweet.
Deanna, if you see her eyes are like, you know, the little mouse on Tom and Jerry, the female mouse. I
I don't know, but I've
just,
seen pictures of Lotta and she has beautiful eyes.
yeah, and the way she just illuminates the area, right? She just, and she would say, "Yeah, I want a
Yeah.
coffee."
How sweet. That is
And
so
so for
sweet.
like,
And it's like, it's such a good part of your story. Tell her thanks.
for
I
like,
said thanks. Or saving you with her eyes. Saved you from yourself.
and for like 2 months, I would just take her coffee and I'd say hi. And then all of us, and then for not 2 months later, but while I was taking her coffee, sometimes I would show up at my desk in my office and there'd be a plate of enchiladas and rice, homemade food.
Oh, yeah.
And
It's,
that's,
you know,
and then it was so innocent. We weren't going to bar. We weren't even touching. We weren't even touching.
well, the fact that you didn't speak the same language just made the need for simple communication that
Yeah.
much more special. That's really
And
cool.
that went on for a few months, and then December rolled around. It was getting to be, I was going through a major divorce. I had no money, none. But things were going, this food and coffee deal that me and Laura were doing, it was like a daily thing. I was feeling a little pressure, like I should take this to the next level. But me being the suave, debonair guy that I am, I went to her and I said, um, "Do you want to go, you want to go have dinner and a drink, maybe? You want to go dancing?" And she said, "Yeah, yeah, I want to go." And I said, "Okay, but we got to wait till January because Christmas is coming and I got to buy presents for my kids. I don't have no money till January. So we'll go in January." And she said, "Okay, we'll go in
Okay.
January."
Okay. That's a real life story and I like it.
Yeah, I'm such a ladies' man, right? Yeah, you want to go dancing? Wait till January. But I think she respected the fact that I told her I got to buy presents for my kids. I don't have any money. I got to buy presents for my kids.
Yeah.
I think she liked that, to be honest with you.
And that's the part I like. It's the real story. Uh, it's just the
Um,
real world.
so, speeding through all that, um, so me and Laura, we start dating. Her part of her ritual. We have now. She had, we have 2 daughters, and her weekly ritual was to take her 2 daughters on Sunday to Catholic Mass, to Catholic Church, and Saturdays and Sundays were my only days that I didn't work. And most of the time, Saturdays, I was doing something. Even to this day, Saturdays, I'm almost always working. So Sundays were the day that I would go visit Deanna, Alejandra, and Laura. Deanna is my
I
daughter's
know.
name.
I know. And she's a good girl.
You know her, huh? You
I
took her
do
to
know her.
Colorado. Yeah.
Yeah, your mom used to bring her to my house with the other kids, and I loved it. I just really did. She's a good girl. You've
So
always had a great family.
she works with me now.
Really?
Yeah.
Hell yeah! You go,
Yeah.
girl.
We're
She could
we're re-
whack you over the head with a wrench if you misbehave.
we're rebuilding a porch right now.
Oh, that's great. That's
Anyway,
great.
so her ritual was, so what ended up happening is if I wanted to spend time with Laura and the 2 girls, I had to
Oh,
go to church.
oh,
Yeah. I had to go to church. And the funny thing is that um, they went to Spanish mass, right? So they didn't speak English. So they would go to Spanish mass, and in the Catholic Church, the Bible has English and Spanish. The Bible is, at least here in New Mexico,
Sure.
the Bible has, so I could follow
Oh,
mass.
on both sides.
I could follow mass on both sides. I started really learning Spanish. I'm pretty fluent right now. Um, so anyway, I started learning Spanish, but more than that, I started learning God. I started learning the gospel. I started, and I started noticing that it was almost inevitable that whatever gospel was being said on that Sunday equated to what I was going through in my life. And I started noticing and acknowledging that God was with me and had been with me my entire life. And so, apart from finding a lover, a spouse, a best friend, I was also finding God. And so these two things were like converging, and it was like life changing for me. Um, and so, long story long, um, I ended up converting to the Catholic Church. I went to catechism. I became a Catholic. I'm a Roman Catholic now. Uh, Laura and I got married through the Catholic Church. Um, yeah, we got, um, and then in 2011, another big event that I have to talk about. Um, so in 2010, my mom is she bought a house, um, kind of close to Windrock Mall. She bought a house in this posh area. I bought her house. The house that we're in now is her house.
Hmm.
I've changed it a little
You've
bit.
made it beautiful. You're
I've
always working on. Yeah.
yeah, I've completely gutted it and changed
Yeah.
everything. But I bought her house and she bought another house, and she's trying to remodel her house. I'm always busy. I've always worked like 60 hours a week. It's just who I am. So she found this guy, Richard, um, who was a handyman at the time, and he started remodeling her house. And slowly but surely, they fall in love. And um, my mom ends up pretty much moving in with him at a trailer on. I, my mom was always kind of weird for me. I mean, we didn't. I love my mom. I'm saying weird. I'm not trying to say like I didn't
Yep.
love her, but she was always a little different thinking than I think.
Yep.
So so she leaves her house and she moves in with him in this single wide trailer, and they have this great relationship, and they go on these camping trips, and they're posting all these great things. And then I'm driving home from work one day, and my mom calls me, And she says, Simon, I need you to come home, come here right now. And I said, Mom, I can't come here right now. I'm getting off work. I'm about to go home. And she said, Richard just shot himself in front of me. And so I turn around and I go to their single wide trailer, and the sheriffs are already there, and they got it all taped up. And sure enough, Richard put a rifle to his head and shot himself right in front of my mom, killed himself. And that was like in October. And then my mom's dealing with it. We're all dealing with it. My mom's. And then in June, my mom's birthday is June 6th. Like June 15th, a few weeks after her birthday, I'm driving home from work. No, I'm not driving home from work. I'm at work. And I get a call. My mom was a registered nurse. She was a home health care nurse. And I get a call and I answer the phone and they say, Simon, is this Simon Garcia? And I say, yeah, this is Simon Garcia. And they say, are you uh, Carla Garcia's son? I say, yes, I'm Carla Garcia's son. The fuck do you want? I mean, I'm at work. I'm like annoyed that I'm getting this call. And they said, well, your mom hasn't been at work for 3 days and she's not like that. And we're concerned. And can you go check on her? And my first thought was, oh man, she's depressed about Richard. She's just sitting at home depressed. I'm gonna go. I'll go talk. I say, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll go check on her. Thank you, boy. And then I tell my work I gotta go. I get my truck and I drive to her house. And on the way driving to her house, I got this. I'm like nauseous, but I'm thinking, oh, she's just depressed. She's just depressed about Richard. I'm gonna talk to her, and I'll get her out of it. But there's like this thing, and I keep pushing it back. I'm like, no, she's fine. I'm just gonna. I get to the house, and her car's there, and my mom wasn't. My mom really liked the summertime. She wasn't one to. So I get to the house, and the windows are all open, and the swamp cooler's not on. Her car's there. I'm knocking on the door. She's not there. She's not answering. And then this thought creeps in my head. And it's just like, please don't let me find her in the bath. I don't want to find her naked in the bathtub. Please, dear God, just I don't want to find her naked. I don't want to see my mom naked in the bathtub. Please, God, don't let her be in the bathtub. And I'm banging on the door and she doesn't answer. And then like I said, the windows were open. So I yell in the window, Mom, I'm coming in. I'm coming through the window. Mom, no answer. So I end up breaking through the screen and I break into the house. And sure enough, I find her on her bed. She's she's in a sundress. And she had been dead for about 3 days in the summer sun.
Oh,
So she was black and bloated, pretty much like the people I saw in Iraq. And well, okay, so yeah, I found her dead. And then so I call the sheriff's department and I call my mom and I call my uncle and I don't call my mom. I call my wife and I call my uncle and I call my kids. And And well, that's that. And then I start having these dreams. I start having these dreams that I'm in, that we just were in one of those battles I told you about, the LMRSs. And then we're going through the village and we're clearing the village. And I'm going into this house and I go through a room and there's this bloated, fat body. And in my dream, I stick it with my bayonet. And when I try to pull the bayonet out, the body turns and it's my mom.
That's so
And
awesome.
this dream starts, I start having this dream. And then so I'm kind of stressing
You
for a few months.
think?
I'm kind of
You think?
stressing for a few months. And I get in a fist fight at a Family Dollar. And then I get in another one at a McDonald's because the guy's doing something in there that I didn't like. And so I go to the McDonald's bathroom. I go to the bathroom. I'm not even at the McDonald's. It's a gas station McDonald's, and I'm pumping gas. And I go to the bathroom. The bathroom's in the McDonald's, and when I get in there, him and his buddy are doing something weird, and I didn't like it. It was on Central in Louisiana. I didn't like it, and I guess my face showed that I didn't like it. I disapproved, and they both stand up and I fight them both. And then I get back in the car and I've got a shiner and my face is all I mean, I'm fighting two guys, so they kind of get the better of me. But really not too bad. I was kind of proud of myself. I did pretty good that day.
That's
But
my guy.
I get in the car and Laura's like, "What happened?" And I'm like, "Nothing." She's like,
She's in the car. She's in the car waiting for you.
"Yeah."
Oh my gosh.
So the point of that is I'm kind of going through this stress period. I'm kind of stressed. Kind of stressed. And then one night, Thanksgiving night, it was Thanksgiving 2011. My mom died in June. We go to my father in law's house and we have dinner, Thanksgiving dinner at my father in law's house. And I have to work Friday. I don't have Friday off. So I have to work. So I cut everything short. It's like 9, 10 o'clock. I watched the Giants and the Vikings play a football game. And then the game ends. And I said, well, I got to go home. I got to work tomorrow. And I'm on the road. So my father in law lives in Los Lunas. And so I'm on I-25 driving back to Albuquerque. And this guy, trying to be honest, I'm not sure who, maybe I cut him off. I wasn't trying to start any shit, but something happened, and all of a sudden, this car pulls up in front of me and short stops on the freeway. And I'm like, I get immediately pissed off. I'm like fucking pissed. I'm pissed. And so I start following him and chasing him, and then I do the same thing to him, and then we start flipping each other off and yelling at each other through the window, and and then long story long, so I get to my turnoff on Gibson, and I notice he's following me, and I think to myself, I'm not taking this guy to my house. So there's a subway on the corner of the street I have to turn off to go to my house and Gibson. And so I pull into the subway and he pulls into the subway and I pull my 357 out and I get out of the car and I tell him, "Don't you get out of your car. Don't you get out of your car." And he starts opening the door and I pop off a round. And the round hits the column between his driver door and his passenger door. And he freaks out, closes and leaves. And um, it's not the first time I've shot at someone in Albuquerque. I've done it.
We are also not the first person to shoot at someone in Albuquerque. I'm just throwing
Yeah.
that out there. There's a
Right.
reason everyone's usually packing. But anyway,
So I don't think much of it. To be honest with you, I don't think much of it. I put the 357 back under my seat. I drive home. I go to bed. And about 12:30, 1 o'clock in the evening, just like Dragnet, Simon Garcia, we have the house surrounded.
oh my God,
Come out with your hands up.
sorry.
And you want to know the truth? I put the pillow over my head. I'm not going out. I'm not going out. But the funny thing is my wife had been trying to come home. They had already closed off the street, and they had already talked to my wife. And so all of a sudden, the phone rings. My cell phone rings,
Oh
and
my
it's
God.
louder. And
And
I
she's tell.
answer it, and it's not louder. It's police officer Ken so and so. I can't remember his name, but this is Officer blah 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 Simon. You got to come outside. And so I do. Okay, all right. So I go outside. They immediately hog tie me and throw me back at the patrol car, and they get me back to the police. It's kind of funny. They get me to the substation and they put me in a chair. I guess they can kind of tell that I'm not being rowdy, or I'm like, okay, whatever.
Thank God,
I'm
because it could
think
have gone so much worse.
I'm thinking in my head, oh, I'm gonna get a, because like I say, I've shot at people before in Albuquerque, so I'm thinking I'm gonna get a negligence use of a firearm charge, or a discharging in city limits, or maybe an aggravated assault. That's what I'm thinking. And they tell me, Mr. Garcia, yeah, so we're charging you with attempted murder.
Wow.
Attempted murder. And I was like, whoa, 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 wait, hold on. No, attempted murder. No, 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 no. If I wanted to kill him, I would have killed him. I shot away from him. It was a warning shot. It was a warning shot. No, attempted murder was what I got charged with. And so I go to the west side and I go to the violent offender pod, and I'm with the little shits who think they're tough, like I did when I was 20, 17, 14, right? And I'm in this pod with a bunch of kids who will do anything to try to prove that they're tough, right?
Hmm. We're back to the prison yard.
And to be
Except
honest,
now
that
we're in prison.
that scares the shit out of me.
Really? You know who to
Because
be afraid of.
because I'm thinking if one of these kids comes at me I'm already in trouble.
Yeah.
And if one of these kids come at me, I'm going to be in more trouble.
Oh,
Regardless, whichever way it turns out. If they hurt me, well, then I'm in trouble. But if
yeah.
I hurt them,
Bam, then you're in trouble.
I'm in more trouble. So regardless of how it turns out, I'm going to be in more trouble. That's what scares me. And I'm looking at these blocks, attempted murder, Dean. Attempted murder. I'm thinking, oh my God, I am so stupid. Oh, this guy dissed me by slamming his brakes in front. Oh, he disrespected me. Oh, and look at what I did to me.
Yeah. Now you're sitting in your little
Yeah.
jail cell.
How long am I going to be here? For 20 years? I mean, you know, when you're sitting in, hopefully, you've never been there, but when you're sitting in jail for a DWI first offense, or when you're sitting in jail for robbing a 7-Eleven, or when you're sitting in jail for an aggravated assault against a guy in an auto zone, you're like, this sucks. I'm going to get out of here. When you're sitting in jail for attempted murder, you start thinking, when am I going to get out of here?
Could be here a long time.
I could be here a long time. I could be here a long time. This could be my life now. This could be my life. And
Attempt, yeah. Attempted murder, violent offenders, state of New Mexico. If you've
yeah,
gone, you go to prison in New Mexico, and it's bad in any state, but that particular state has got issues.
and then the other problem is a guy like me who's, I mean, you go to prison and what's going to happen there? What? How more am I going to get deep? How more complicated is this going to get?
If you're not gang affiliated when you go in, you will be when you're there for a while,
Yeah, or you'll be hurt.
or you'll be hurt.
So anyway, okay, so that was 2011. Uh, Now we're going on 2 hours. Nobody's gonna watch this. Nobody's gonna watch my story for 2 hours.
No, but you're gonna get to a lot of things off your chest.
Um, so again, by the grace of God, um, they gave me a plea. The district attorney first she sent me a nolle prosequi, which means that they're not going to prosecute. It turns out that the guy had issues as well, or something. So the district attorney was like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, maybe Simon had um,
Or he was,
justifiable.
yeah. Or he wasn't gonna make the best witness.
Yeah. So, but then Carrie Brandenburg, sent me a letter later saying that they were going to prosecute, but that they would give me a plea agreement, and that if I pled guilty to a lesser charge, shooting at or from a motor vehicle, still a fourth degree felony, but not attempted murder, that they would give me 5 years probation and no jail time. And I took that plea. I
Yes.
took it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have not been in trouble with the law since. That
Damn,
was the
Simon.
last.
That's as far as you had to take it before you're like, okay, I'm good now. Like, damn. You're just gonna push the boundaries as far as possible. That's pretty far to push it. Wow.
I have not been in trouble with the law since
I
2011.
bet you have not. And given your
Now,
circumstances, you still live in the same neighborhood. It wouldn't be uncommon to go outside and find somebody rifling
well,
through your car or something bad shit happening that, I mean, sometimes you end up in violent altercations just from trying
I
to protect someone else.
I haven't been in trouble with the law since 2011. I've been in fistfights since then.
Okay. Well, the law just didn't find out about him.
The law just didn't find out about them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But my last fistfight was 3 years ago. So 3 years. I'm getting better.
You ever thought of just taking up cage fighting or UFC or something? You just like to fight. You just part Irish.
No, it's not that I like to. I just don't like to eat shit.
Okay.
But
It's okay.
people.
Circumstances.
My last fist fight was because somebody. We were at the gas station, and there's a whole line of people, and this idiot just goes right to the register and bypass. And I say, "Hey, the line's back here." And he said, "F you," and I'm like, "F me, f you," and it's on. And
Mm-hmm.
then a couple little skirmish, a couple like little school fight, nothing serious, a little skirmish, and then the cash register guy says, "Hey, I'm gonna call the cops," and both me and this both guy go, "Oh, all right, we're done. Don't call the cops. We're done."
Yeah.
And the little shit leaves, and now suddenly I'm at the front of the line for some reason. Nobody else.
You can go first. Oh, Simon.
I buy my cigarettes and I leave. But that was 3 years ago, Deanna. That was the
Okay.
last time I've been in a fist fight.
Okay.
3 years
Well,
ago. I've been good.
you have a good heart. You like to fight, but you have a good heart. And you, again, were raised in an environment where that shit happens all the time. I never understood, growing up in Albuquerque,
It does
why
happen all the time.
all the time. I just didn't understand. Like, you just stop to get gas, and then somebody starts harassing you. I didn't understand for the longest time. I went to college and studied deviant sociology because it just didn't understand why we grew up in this environment where somebody always wanted to fight or somebody always wanted to harass you or rob you. And I still don't understand. But it is, I actually saw a YouTube video the other night from a guy I watched that drives around ghettos in the country, and he was saying Albuquerque is now like the 30th or 20th most dangerous city in the world. In the
Now be
world. No, I'm telling you. It was like, it's more dangerous than Bogota, Colombia, or something. I don't remember exactly what he said, but and it's not that people there get murdered. It's that you're very likely to be assaulted or be in the midst of a violent crime.
well, yeah, I I can attest to that.
Well, you can put some thought into why that is. It's just people are on drugs, a lot of alcohol.
They're
Uh,
poor. A lot
they're
of people are
poor.
poor.
And when you're poor, you're not happy,
You
you're
don't
suffering. You
you
have
don't
huge
care.
ethnic diversity. I mean, growing up, we didn't even have gangs growing up. We just were kind of automatically segregated into different
Click,
groups. Yeah.
click. Yeah,
Yeah.
we had our little cliques.
Mm-hmm. Gosh, Simon,
Yeah,
that's a lot. That's a lot. And I'd still hire you as a handyman for my grandma. I
oh, we
would.
didn't even go into the Lord have mercy. We didn't even go into. I opened my own business. I work for myself now. I'm
And
going in.
anyone you were working for in Albuquerque would be damn lucky to have you. You're incredibly trustworthy. You're totally responsible. And if some asshole comes to the door trying to rob them, you'd be the guy I want doing plumbing under my sink. I'd be like, hey, Simon, can you come over here? I'm having a problem.
Yeah, no problem, lady. I'll take care of
No,
it.
no,
Uh, no, I think I started this off by saying that I don't take credit for. I've been blessed. I know a lot of because I've rebuilt this house that I live in. You know,
this looks
I
beautiful.
just me doing my own side jobs, my own over the years. I've learned how to do electrical. I've learned how to do plumbing. I've replumbed a whole bathroom. And then, so at some point, I just decided to open a handyman business. And I had every owner, the owner of Jewel Art, the company that I met Laura at, and then Highway Supply, where I work, all of them were like, yeah, Simon, you can do it. You're smart enough. You run our businesses. They all backed me. They taught me how to uh, register and get my LLC and get my bonding and my insurance. And they helped me
Did
through every step of the way.
didn't you just pass your whole general contractor licensure exam?
I'm a general contractor in the
Yeah,
state of New Mexico.
yeah.
I have my GB 98. Uh, and every shyster and criminal out there is going to tell you this, but I really just want to do the best work for my customers. That's all. I wake up every day and I ask God, just let me do good work. From tomorrow, I'm working for Katie or Rourke. I'm name
Wonderful.
name dropped again. Damn
That's okay. That's okay. He's a beautiful person with a beautiful family, and I can't think of anybody else I'd want to trust
But I don't
taking
have,
care of her.
through all the horrible things I told you about, with the exception of cars, I've never stolen from anybody. I
No.
mean, the car thing was a little phase because it was a car and I had to be cool or whatever. But I don't steal from people. I don't want anything anybody else has. What they have, what you have, Deanna, God bless you. You have it. I'm not jealous of it. I don't want any. I'm glad you have what you have. Thank God. I have what I have. I mean, if I want more, just work a little harder.
Yeah, you've been one of the hardest working people I've ever known. Did that work ethic come from your mom and your grandpa? Your mom worked hard. Your mom was always working.
Yeah, you know what? My dad was a hard worker too. He
No
really was.
surprise there. What did he do?
He was a respiratory therapist.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because he works. I met him once in Denver, and he worked like downtown Denver, one of those big
Yeah,
hospitals.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, my dad worked hard too. Hard work is on both sides of my family.
Hell, your mom taught me how to work.
Yes.
I learned a lot from your mom. I really did. We're gonna do a tribute episode to your mom, and we're gonna
Are
talk
you
to a couple of
serious?
years. Absolutely, I adored your mom, and I learned so much from her. She used to give me parenting advice.
That's kind of funny.
But the older I got, the more I realized that uh, she was a single mom, a single working mom, trying to afford a place to live in a rough neighborhood. And
Yeah.
so when she sent her kids outside during the day, whether she
she was
was with them. Sorry.
well, she would send us out so she could clean the house.
But she didn't, like, none of us were bad kids. We just, as soon as we stepped outside of the house, we were in an environment that was very, very abnormal. And I remember you and your mom having a lot of fights, and I remember her being really stressed out and you being really rebellious. But in the end, not in the end, but she never gave up on you. She sent you to the automotive technology in Phoenix. She supported you when you wanted to join the military. She kept parenting you. I really don't think the things that happened to you or to most of us were the fault of our parents. I think that we were growing up near Central Avenue in the 70s and the 80s, and because she was a smart lady and she did the best she could. I mean, I'm sure she
She
wasn't perfect, but she
no,
never stopped parenting.
and you know what, Deanna, I can honestly say that I've had more than like my aunts and I've had in my mom's friends, and I've had more than one person tell me when my mom needed something, she called me. The car broke
Mm-hmm.
down.
Mm-hmm.
Simon, this tree's about to fall in my. I cut down a couple trees at her
Yeah.
house. I mean, when my mom needed something, she called me and she
Mm-hmm.
relied on me. And I've had, after she died at the funeral, her friends and her, they told me that my mom adored me. She
She
loved me.
did. She did. She very
And,
much did. She
and
wasn't
I,
going to give up on you just because you're a rebellious teenager. She's going to fight with you, which is
yeah,
probably what
which
she
is,
should. I mean, I'm sure it provoked you to be more mad, but she wasn't going to let you get away with that shit. She was going to
yeah,
keep telling you that what you were doing was wrong.
yeah, yep.
Yep. Yep.
And
I
she
would
did.
like to. I would like to get into another episode about how you felt when you joined the Roman Catholic Church. I think, if I remember correctly, she might have had an opinion on that.
She did.
Yeah, I bet she did. Uh, oh, Simon, I want to stop in case I get cut off at 2 hours, but I think we got to do
Yeah.
this again in another day or two, and talk to your siblings about a tribute episode to your mom because
Okay.
I'd really like to do it.
Thank you,
I
Deanna.
would.
I'm sorry I take so long.
No,
It's
I
just
love it.
I start rolling and I just
No,
start
I
thinking
love it.
things.
Uh, it's real. It's real, and you can keep telling me, and I don't care if anybody listens. Uh, Ever. I'm just really happy that you get to tell your story because I'm proud of you. It
Oh,
hasn't been
thank you.
easy. It hasn't not been easy.
Well, yeah, but it's not easy for anybody. I mean, I'm not
No,
trying to.
no. But I'm saying it hasn't been easy. I'm saying you made a lot of bad choices too, but I'm saying that the circumstances that you started out in uh, weren't on your side. They weren't in your favor.
Well, God's always been with me.
Good for God.
Thank you, Deanna.
Uh, Take care, Simon. I'll talk to you again.
Okay, let me know
Okay.
if you want another one.
Oh, I always want another one.
Okay,
Thanks.
bye
Thanks a
bye.
lot. Take care, Simon.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.